back. We've got a mixed market this morning in the pre-market as we await the Federal Reserve decision this afternoon, day two of a two-day meeting. Central Bank is expected to provide some details on their plans to eventually scale back the easy money policies. The Dow and the Nasdaq this morning are fractionally lower. The S&P is higher. Joining me right now is Maglan Capital President and ProChain Capital President David Towle. David, it's great to have you this morning. Thanks very much for joining us. I want to get to your take on what you're expecting from the price of oil, because it's certainly something our investors want to look at. But first, give us your expectations of the Fed meeting today and what you expect in terms of tapering conversations.
As always, I think the Fed's pronouncement post-meeting is going to be very, very carefully parsed, and I think it's going to indicate certainly an end and a shift away from the easy money, low rates, and going ahead and reducing the Fed's involvement in the economy.
This morning, the 10-year Treasury yield is down more than 1 basis point, David. Why do you think the Federal Reserve is going to start taking away the punch bowl, start perhaps at some point moving interest rates higher when, in fact, rates keep moving lower? I mean, how do you explain this decline in interest rates?
Look, I think what the Fed wants to get to is a rise in rates, less involvement. They're seeing great numbers out of unemployment. They're seeing concerning numbers regarding inflation. And so, therefore, I think that the way they're going to go, and potentially shockingly tomorrow, they may go ahead and, really start to pull the rug out from under this easy money policy. In terms of what rates are doing right now, frankly, I can't explain it. There may be different motivations inside the market for purchases. But nevertheless, I think that the pronouncement is going to be a shift in sentiment.
Part of the shift in sentiment that you're referring to is as a result of inflation. I want to get your take on oil. Oil is now at $72 a barrel this morning, and it's been rising with all of the upset across the world. It's at $72.17 right now. You think oil prices will hit $100 a barrel before the end of the year. Is that right?
That is correct, Maria. I think that oil, not only from an inflationary standpoint, but also from a demand standpoint, is certainly in a place where it is going to rise consistently and considerably now into the end of the year.
So what are the drivers of that move in oil that you're expecting? I should point out that Goldman Sachs yesterday made a similar comment saying that they do believe that we could see oil at 100 by the end of the year. What's driving it? Is it inflation? Is it this removal of easy money, David? Where do you see oil going and when?
So I've been saying 100 for a while now. I actually think we're going to get to an oil crisis within the next 3 years. Just to give you some real recent statistics, we're talking about the highest gasoline prices since the pandemic began. China usage of gasoline is now at pre-2019 highs, exceeding that amount. And with COVID restrictions coming off throughout the developed world, travel and consumption in terms of services is going much, much higher. And so therefore the demand is incredible. On the supply side, we had an announcement from Shell, which needs to comply with a Dutch court order to cut its emissions massively, that Shell is selling all of its Permian Basin assets. The oil majors are trying to get out of the big oil game as quickly as they can. They have shareholder pressure, they have government pressure, and so therefore supply is coming offline very quickly, demand is rising, our country is very environmentally focused, and therefore we are going to have, regardless of inflation, simply from supply and demand dynamics, we are going to have a much, much higher oil and gasoline environment.
You know, that has so many implications, David. It may very well act as a catalyst for a slowdown in the economy. As oil prices rise, it becomes more expensive. And I said earlier, Goldman Sachs on this topic said that they would not rule out $100 a barrel. They're not as aggressive as you have been in terms of where things are going. Let me bring Steve Forbes in here. Go ahead, Steve.
David, I'm wondering if this rise that you see in the price of oil is going to get this administration to back off, at least behind the scenes, on its war on fossil fuels. And the other thing is, if the majors are going to scale back, aren't you going to have a lot of other independents move in and buy these assets on the cheap and take advantage of this great environment?
So two things. To respond to your first question, I don't think the administration is going to have the luxury of backing off. The environmental voices are so loud in the legislature and, frankly, in the constituent and voting base. So regardless of what financial motivations there may be, I think those ESG concerns are going to take precedence over them. Potentially, Biden could do some softening behind the scenes, but frankly, on the front lines, once they get a whiff of that, we will start to see it in the front pages of the paper. With respect to go ahead, Maria.
No, you go ahead. Please finish.
Oh, sure. So with respect to, the potential for a slowdown in the economy, I think that there is certainly concern there to add to pressure and further inflate prices. And I do think that the administration is going to have to go ahead and combat that.
And in terms of the Federal Reserve, you think that the Fed starts tapering then before year end, or just starts talking about it before year end?
It's a good question. I think, there was a retail sales report yesterday that retail sales actually, dropped in May from April. And, the explanation is, or at least the common explanation is, that there is a rise in services and a drop in goods spending. I think what the Fed is going to wait for is to see how much spending and growth pull back as a result of the stopping of the stimulus checks, unemployment checks going ahead and being paid out, to see what a normalized environment looks like.
David, it's great to get your insights. We'll keep watching. Thanks so much.